This week's episode is brought to you by our supporters. If you would like to support us and get exclusive content, check the links below. On the night of Saturday, August 24th, 2019,
Harry Baker,
along with his friend, whose identity has never been revealed due to his age at the time of the incident, hopped onto a train in Cardiff Central Station bound for the coastal town of Bury, located around 15 miles southwest of Cardiff. The pair arrived in Bury around midnight, which is when the trouble started. What exactly led these two teenage boys to Bury that night, we may never know for sure. However, both Harry and his unidentified friend were known to deal drugs at a low level in the Cardiff area, and this trip to Bury appears to have been another drug run. The only difference this time was that Harry and his friend were stepping into a lion's den. Word had spread through Bury's drug-dealing community that the boys from Cardiff were there, which put them right on the radar of a group of dangerous dealers based in Bury, who felt threatened by Harry and his friend's presence because they too dealt the same drugs. The group of Bury dealers consisted of 23-year-old Leon Simmons, 22-year-old Leon Clifford, 16-year-old Brandon Liversidge, 27-year-old Peter McCarthy, 20-year-old Ryan Palmer, a 31-year-old Raymond Thompson, and 20-year-old Lewis Evans. This gang were big players in Bury's drug scene. They felt that Harry and his friend were encroaching on their territory and needed to be taught a lesson. Around midnight, after arriving in Bury, Harry and his friend were messaged by one of the Bury dealers with whom they had previously had some sort of disagreement with over text messages, the details of which were never revealed during the trial, but it was established that the message was an invitation to meet up in a location near Bury docks. Little did Harry and his friend know that this was a setup. All 7 Bury dealers were lying in wait in the darkness for the unsuspecting duo. When Harry and his friend got close enough, several of the Bury dealers jumped out and shouted, "Oi, you!" before rushing towards them. Startled by the sudden appearance of these strangers, Harry and his friend turned and ran for their lives. The 7 Bury dealers gave chase. Surveillance footage later obtained by the police showed the 2 boys desperately trying to flee for their lives while the 7 dealers gave chase, wielding weapons such as sticks and iron bars. Harry and his friend ran down Little Moors Hill in Bury and turned left onto Cardiff Road, still being pursued by the gang. As they ran, Harry slipped and fell to the ground, but he was back on his feet in a flash and continued running. His friend picked himself up, and together they raced towards the nearby Bury Intermodal Terminal, hoping that they could climb the fence and escape the clutches of their attackers. The Bury dealers were hot on their heels, and they too began to climb the fence. Tragically, we do not have any footage of what happened once Harry and his friend reached the top of the fence and entered the safety of the Bury docks. We can only rely on eyewitness testimony to paint a picture of what happened next. Once inside the dock area, Harry and his friend managed to avoid their attackers for a short time, hiding behind some shipping containers. But after a few minutes, the boys panicked and began running again. They were spotted by one of the dealers who shouted, "Oi, get him," before giving chase. Harry's friend testified that Harry was caught and beaten by 5 men. While he managed to escape, he could hear Harry screaming in pain. Another witness said that she saw 2 people being chased by a group of men, one of whom was holding a knife. She also heard one of the attackers shout, "Get his trainers off and let's get him." According to her testimony, the group of men then dragged the victim who had fallen to the ground into a cluster of shipping containers. She then heard a scream, believed to be Harry's last moments alive. It was at this point that Harry's friend knew that he had to escape the scene to live. He ran away and hid. Meanwhile, Harry was being attacked by the entire group. Brandon Liversidge punched Harry twice in the head while Raymond Thompson held him down. Peter McCarthy was armed with a large knife and repeatedly stabbed Harry in the stomach. Leon Simmons was also armed with a knife, which he used to slice Harry's hand. Leon Clifford hit Harry in the head with an iron bar, causing a wound that required stitches. Ryan Palmer delivered several blows to Harry's head and face, while Lewis Evans kicked him several times in the ribs. After stabbing Harry, Peter McCarthy stated, "I'm sure that will keep him off the streets for a couple of months," all while Harry's friend was hiding nearby, not satisfied with what they had done to Harry. The attackers stole his black Armani joggers worth around 20 pounds and one of his white Nike trainers. They then ran off, leaving Harry mortally wounded. According to the post-mortem examination report, Harry sustained 6 separate wounds during the attack. The fatal injury was a deep stab wound to his abdomen, which punctured his bowel and caused internal bleeding. The pathologist who carried out the post-mortem concluded that Harry would have survived for between 1 and 3 hours, after sustaining the fatal blow. The prosecution argued that the evidence proved that all 7 defendants were guilty of murder, claiming that they all intended to kill Harry. However, the defense argued that the incident was a case of manslaughter rather than murder. Each defendant admitted to stealing from Harry, but denied murdering him. When the case eventually went to trial, the prosecution showed CCTV footage of the incident, explaining how Harry had been lured into the trap in Barry, and how the 7 dealers hunted him down like a pack of wolves. It was clear from the footage that the group had been waiting for Harry in the darkness, and had sprung into action as soon as he arrived. The prosecution argued that the fact that the dealers had armed themselves with weapons and hunted Harry down showed their intention to cause him really serious harm. The defense argued that their client's intention was to merely scare Harry and his friend off, not to hurt them. However, the prosecution pointed out that the group had used knives and iron bars during the attack, which was not consistent with the defense's claims. In the end, Leon Simmons, Leon Clifford, and Brandon Liversidge were found guilty of murder. Peter McCarthy, Ryan Palmer, Raymond Thompson, and Lewis Evans were found guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. South Wales Police Detective Chief Inspector Matt Keane said after the verdict, "This was a ferocious and brutal attack which tragically resulted in the death of a 17-year-old boy. The level of violence used by the group was shocking. Harry's family have suffered immensely throughout this trial, and begin to imagine the pain and anguish they have endured since his death. Our thoughts remain with them at this very difficult time." Sentencing the 7 dealers, Mrs. Justice PMM said that she believed that Harry's death was not just revenge for what had happened earlier in the night, but was also motivated by financial gain. She said that the group wanted to eliminate the competition, so that they could continue to deal drugs in Barry without interference. She sentenced Leon Simmons to life in prison with a minimum term of 28 years, before he can be considered for parole. Leon Clifford was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 27 years. Peter McCarthy was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Brandon Liversidge was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years. Ryan Palmer was sentenced to 11 years in prison for manslaughter. Raymond Thompson was sentenced to 6 years in prison for manslaughter. And Lewis Evans was sentenced to 4 years in prison for manslaughter. Mrs. Justice PMM said, "Each of you hunted Harry Baker down and killed him in cold blood. You acted like a pack of wolves and showed no mercy. This was a truly horrific crime, which has had a devastating impact on Harry's family and friends. I believe that you are all dangerous individuals and that the public need to be protected from you. So why did this horrific murder happen? It's impossible to say for sure, but it appears to have been a combination of factors, including the increasing popularity of county lines, drug dealing, the lure of easy money, and a lack of respect for human life. County lines drug dealing involves supplying drugs from a source in a big city like Cardiff to smaller towns and villages where demand is high. Dealers travel from the big cities to the smaller areas, often bringing their conflicts with them. This can lead to violence and bloodshed, as was the case with Harry Baker. I think this case highlights the dangers of the drug trade and the need for more to be done to tackle county lines drug dealing. I also think it shows the importance of rehabilitation and the need for young people to be given opportunities in life so that they do unturn to a life of crime. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.